Welcome to Loren Reads to You. Today we are reading The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. Make sure you're following or subscribing wherever you're watching or listening to this. And if you haven't heard any of chapter 1 through 16 yet, you might want to save this, go back and watch or listen to those, and then come back to this. Otherwise, get comfy, get cozy, and get ready, because it's time for Chapter 17. Okay, guys, let's construct the timeline and events in this Julie Winthrop case. The men groaned. I know, it's all so messed up and gruesome. But if we don't go through all of this with a fine-tooth comb, we might miss something extremely vital to catching this guy, which you all know. So stop groaning complaints at me and start constructing this shit, Lament said. Wait, did we establish if she could have gotten this guy from the campus? Detective Thorne interrupted. Yes, we checked. It was possible, but there is nothing to indicate that's the case, Detective Brewster answered. Plus, the other victims aren't in the same college, or they aren't students at all, so there's no connection to her, the college, and the other victims, making it time we had to spend, yet wish we never wasted, Reynolds said. Can I continue? Lament asked, annoyed while looking up from the reports. They nodded. We know Julie Winthrop's father had ivy installed all around the fence. The officers asked him what made him decide to do so, and the father claims the daughter told him that it felt as if someone was watching her while she would be in the backyard. Supposedly, she had said it's not all the time, but enough she feels uncomfortable being outside at all. She felt so concerned that she would feel that way each time she stepped out. That the father actually contracted his landscaper and asked for a way to keep everything looking attractive, yet still providing privacy from anyone looking in. And it was the landscaper who suggested the English ivy. The officers were told by the father that it was only the next day after he had the ivy installed that he discovered all of it dead, along with most of the other plants and things he had planted. Lament read from the documents. Before you say anything, yes, we checked out the landscaping company called Greenscaping, and the landscaper Dale was checked out, and when asked, the man ranted at the cop about how angry he was. All his hard work was destroyed. So it doesn't make sense to do all the work putting the ivy around the entire perimeter just to destroy it and everything he planted. Also, none of the other victims are his clients. Besides, the officers checked, and the guy even has an alibi. He was away for an overnight vacation, celebration, anniversary with his wife. The hotel confirmed it, so it's not him. Okay, so it's not the landscaper. So what? The dad had ivy installed along the fence so no one can see in, and someone didn't like it? We checked the neighbors, right? Probably just a jealous neighbor that didn't want them winning one of their garden awards, right? Reynolds asked. We checked that, and no, we didn't find any reason to believe that's the case. In this case, Lament said to Reynolds. So someone hates Ivy. Who cares? Not our kind of case. We're moving on, right? Detective Brewster asked, smiling with a false hope. No, Brewster, that's not the end of it. In this case, you know that. We know it had to be connected to the peeping-tom, and it went to a peeping-tom. It only enraged him. Remember, when it comes to a peeping-tom, blocking his view would be a button that would trigger him. So the perp punished him for putting up the ivy by destroying all of it. That's a loud and clear message, huh? Thorne asked sarcastically. Yes, exactly. It's the cliche of no one takes away what I want, Lament said. Also, the belief of an eye for an eye as well, Brewster said. The men nodded in agreement. It was a week later, Lament said as Thorne raised the dry erase marker to the board to write, then hesitated. Same day as the week before, Detective Thorne asked, interrupting. Yes, Lament said. Well, that shows a sign for the need of a routine, Reynolds said. It also shows signs of no interest in being stopped, Brewster said, frustrated. The men nodded solemnly in agreement. So, do you think he was singing Poison Ivy while he was poisoning the ivy? Thorne asked as he smirked and chuckled. Brewster snorted with laughter while shaking his head. Thorne was always saying weird, funny stuff like that. What? You know, poison ivy, poison ivy. Well, late at night when you're sleeping, poison ivy comes creeping around. You know, the Rolling Stones song, the Coasters song. The men just smiled and shook their heads. What? No one? Wow. You're all uncultured swines, Thorne exclaimed, overly dramatic. The men chuckled again. Brewster nonchalantly wrote down the song to check it out later. Lament just stared at them silently with his arms crossed. He was too tired and too upset for interruptions. The men quieted down. No one liked Lament pissed at them. It's all fun and games until Detective Lament got pissed at you. Although they were all around the same age, give or take a few years, Lament had always been like the father of the group. Never wanting to make Dad mad, the men wiped the smiles from their faces. You done? Good. The report says they arrived at the scene of 9:10 in progress. They got a call onto a scene for a prowler? Reynolds exclaimed. Yes, he had already begun to escalate his behaviors. I believe the installation of the ivy triggered him, making him volatile. The fact of the ivy being destroyed and the discovery of his break-in, it all makes sense when you think about voyeurs. The father blocked a way for the perp to see in, so he destroyed it. It caused him to have to venture inside the property, which very probably caused him to create even more intimate fantasies about his target. The victim claimed it was hard to truly describe the perp, but she said when she asked if it could have been a jilted lover from a class or a boy from school who she declined a date with, she said, and I quote, "If that guy went to school, then he has to be part of some adult education program because he just somehow seemed older than my father with the coldest, deadest eyes I've ever seen. If I ever saw him again, I'd remember those eyes." Police checked all staff as well as grounds and cleaning service associated with the school and her home. Nothing. She even looked at alumni photos, staff photos, as well as all their mugshots. Nothing. The officers arrived to the scene of the 901 to discover the father and daughter extremely distraught. They had gone out on some father-daughter dinner date and came home to a mess and a prowler, Lament exclaimed. Damn, Thorne said. The officers said there was a lot of dirty footprints leading from the back door and all over the house. It was the daughter's bedroom that sickened the officers. Officer Prescott said he found a picture of the girl on top of her pillow. It was her in a scantily clad white bikini. There was also a very soiled spot on the middle of the bed. The bedspread was soiled along with a pair of the girl's panties. They were wadded up and were soaked wet, obviously, from the perp's own semen. Forensics took samples of the fluids and samples from the perp's shoe prints, of course. Wait, how did the perp get in? Brewster asked. Ready for this? They keep a spare key under the flower pot right next to the door, Lament said, staring at him. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. That's like one of the major no-nos. So, with the Janet Haberdasher case, he used the ladder they conveniently left out for him. And this one, a key was left in an easy spot for it to find. So, these are break-ins of opportunity? He's not breaking in like breaking a window or kicking in a door. He just uses what people are foolish enough to leave out for him? Reynolds exclaimed with a disgusted groan and collapsed in his chair. Yep. So, he let himself in, and he even let himself back out and put the key back. The officers found it in the same spot the residents leave it. A stunned look was plastered on the detectives' faces. Makes sense to put him back where they belong. It makes less noticeable how he got in, Thorne said, kind of matter-of-factly. Let's continue, Brewster said, nodding in agreement with Thorne. All right. A week later, Thorne asked, double-checking. Yes, a week later. Another 901 call was put through for the Winthrop house, except it wasn't the father calling this time, Lament said. Seriously? 2 calls of a prowler on premise for the same victim? Reynolds asked, boggled and angry. Sadly, yes. The officers made sure the victim's father removed any and all keys that were hidden around the property. I'm guessing when the keys were gone, he just found another way. The perp obviously was of the mentality which made him need to see the victim no matter what, said Brewster, then nodded at Lament to continue. The maid said she was locking up for the night, and she stated every night she locks every door and checks the lock on every window. Wait, where was she during the last incident? Reynolds questioned. Lament picked up the previous incident's report and rifled through it, looking for the answer. Ah, here it is. The father had given her the night off. She came back much later that night to discover what happened. Oh, so she a living maid. Yes. Ooh, living maid. Okie dokie. Yes. So, wait. The first incident, the father gave her the night off just out of the blue? Not previously planned? Does it really matter right now, dude? Reynolds asked Thorne, sounding absolutely exasperated. Well, it might. If he somehow knew she was given the day off, he planned it to coincide. If he didn't know, then he did it trying to get himself caught. The other possibility is he just couldn't care, probably because he had a psychotic break, and it shows how out of touch with reality he is. If we knew which it was, it would help us understand the type of personality disorder we're working with, as well as might help us figure out a way to trap him. Fine. Great. Thanks, Freud. Continue, Lament, Reynolds said, rolling his eyes with a sigh of annoyance. Anyway, she said she always checked Miss Julie's windows since she was on the ground floor. The maid, Mandy, had been working there for more than 20 years. Says she went to the windows in the ladies' bathroom and saw the window facing the shower was wide open. Mandy claims that's normal. Miss Julie does it during every shower to let the steam out and cool air in. Mandy went to the window, and there were eyes staring at her from the darkness. She gasped and then screamed in fury, I see you! I'm calling the cops! You're right to hell for peeking at Miss Julie! Wow, Thorne said, stunned. Yep, it actually worked. The maid Mandy said the eyes went from evil to filled with lust to fearful, and she heard the sound of a zipper and heavy footprints running away. Unfortunately, that's all she could tell the police was, of course, no one there by the time the officers arrived to the scene, Lament told the other detectives. So wait, then what? Brewster asked. That was chapter 17 of The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. So make sure you're following or subscribing wherever you're watching or listening to this. And if you're interested in getting this book for yourself, remember to check it out on Amazon. It's available on paperback and Kindle. And I'll see you for chapter 18.